have completed this, blah, blah, blah. So that's personal. Now, the second thing I wanted to focus is from the Testoper point of view, right? So Testoper is a non-profit. And it's important that you understand that we are here, all the organizers inside the Testopers are not an event company, right? We are a bunch of people, experienced people have come together to help, right? So that's the Testoper community, and it's a non-profit registered entity. Now, the idea of Testoper community to conduct this particular program, Intelligent Automation Codeathon program, is to educate the audience on all the topics related to intelligent automation. Now, what is intelligent automation, right? So it starts with the very basics, cloud, and then it gets into AI, ML, and all those kind of things. And also it gets into RPA, right? So anything that falls under the intelligent automation umbrella as a technologies, we wanted to cover it. That's our focus, right? We want to help you to do. But from the Testoper point of view, our goal is not to help you to become Azure expert or a Google expert or a IBM expert. No, right? So we are, the vendor independent community. That's from the Testoper point of view. Now, Microsoft is a foundational, I would say they are the biggest supporter of Testoper, right? So without them, Testoper doesn't exist. I have told that in multiple forums, right? So without them, Testoper doesn't at all exist. So when we really want them to come in and help us with our Testoper goal, that is, help you to train on cloud, automation, RPA, AI, ML, right? That's what we wanted to do from the Testoper point of view. Because Microsoft is coming and supporting Testoper and helping us to achieve that goal, naturally, you should understand that they are bringing in and explaining all these concepts to you through the tools that they have, right? So that's the third point of view. I just want to make sure, Sonali, this is very clear, among us. It should not be misinterpreted or misunderstood. Okay. It's clear, right, Sonali?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You would see that in future, right? We might have someone from Google coming and telling you on AI, or someone, independent consultant will come and train you on Python and all the different APIs that are there in AI, right? So you would see that from the Testoper point of view. Okay. All right. So the last point, and then I'll give the floor to Krishna. Looks like we have 30 plus audience. Thanks, Lake. I was really worried because we were changing from bi-weekly to weekly. Will we have an impact? Our general audience 30, we have it. That's really good. My kind request is please refer your friends. Bring in more of your friends, because that's the only happiness for our organizers, right? Nothing else. Okay. So I just wanted to do that. Then last, so Krishna, this is a request for you. So what you're going to do today is, when you start the program, you're going to stop the program after 30 minutes. Okay. And you're going to give a break for 3 to 5 minutes to the audience, and they are going to do two things for us. Number one is there is a survey in the Testoper general tab. They are going to fill that survey. It takes a minute. Okay. So they are going to do that today. And then the second thing they are going to do that is they are going to go to this Eventbrite, testoper.eventbrite.com. There is two programs, new programs that we are launching in July, depending upon your interest. The first program, I want every one of you, if you have not registered before, to register. That program is a meetup program that's coming up on June 20th, 10 o'clock. So on that week, we won't have this intelligent automation program, right? So it will be a meetup program. I wanted you to join that, and it's very important. Why? Because we are focusing on a topic, cybersecurity, how automation, AI, and cloud is transforming the innovation landscape in cybersecurity. And we have three awesome speakers, right? So we have a head of cloud in RBC, and we have a head of chief architect, head of architect or something in cybersecurity in Microsoft, and then we also have a founder of two companies in cybersecurity, Brian Lee, right? So they would be giving you some nice perspective, and what they are going to talk about and what topic they are going to talk about is available in the Eventbrite. Okay, so when we take that break, I wanted you guys to go and register that, because I know it's going to be very much helpful for you, and no option, right? You all must register for that. And there is another program that we have, which is a test automation program. That's only for the test who wants to build their expertise on test automation. We are starting a codeathon for that every Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. every week, starting from July 17th. So that is optional. Only those who wants to learn test automation can go and register. So this is what we are going to do, Krishna. We're going to stop your program after 30 minutes, and 5 minutes. We are going to do this, and then we are going to continue your program and close it.
So can you help keep me the timing, please? So I'm
okay.
all my screens all with PowerPoint. So okay, no so problem. 10 now the time is 10:40. So
10:40,
you want me to
11:10
give a break, and then 5-10 minutes they will do that, and then
5 minutes is more than enough.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 minutes, and then you continue and you finish by 11:15 as scheduled.
Okay, no problems at all.
All right, over to you, Krishna.
So are we recording is started already, or are you going to start now?
Recording is started, I think. Yeah.
Please okay, fair enough. Thank you all for joining again for the Azure fundamental session. So today we're going to talk about two key products or concepts. Either way, it's fine. One is the Azure Load Balancer and the Azure Application Gateway. So I've specifically dedicated this week, maybe next week as well, on this particular topic, because this is a very key topic in terms of building cloud native applications. So I want to take as much as time possible and as low as possible. My only ask from the team, the attending team, is I'm going to share the slide decks. Kindly go and review each and every slide deck, and then make sure you understand the concepts, because these are getting a bit more deeper than usual introduction sessions, so that you're able to design applications in a cloud native format as well. So I just want to quickly touch base on the past week's review. It's been the 4th week. Thanks for your commitment and and also attendance as well. We covered the Azure basic concept, and we also touched base with Kubernetes platform, which is called AKS in Azure. And last week we had Azure DNS and private DNS topics. There were some issues last week, and looks to me like the browser, the Microsoft Azure portal had some latency in updating the values. So pretty much everything worked after the session was done. Anyway, I've shared the slide decks with the code, so feel free to try it. So let's go into today's topic. Today's topic is based. It's part of the Azure networking service. The first product we're going to talk about is called the Azure Load Balancer, and then followed by an Azure Application Gateway. So these two are very key products. For example, the Azure Load Balancer, we call them as a layer 4 load balancer. So it's used to get internal traffic and external traffic from any type of applications or user, and distribute the traffic across multiple nodes which are behind that load balancer. An application gateway we call as a layer 7, which is predominantly used for HTTP and HTTPS load balancing. So we will go into the Azure Load Balancer as a start off with. If you have any questions, while doing the break, let me know. Kadir, I don't have the view of the chat window. If anybody is posting questions, kindly help me to let me know and then answer the questions. If you take about the Azure Load Balancer, there are multiple. Let me explain to you what does the load balancer actually mean. Actually, as a name, the idea of the load balancer is to evenly distribute the incoming traffic across group of backend resources or servers. So why do you need that? For example, if you are running a website, let's say Amazon.com or Microsoft.com or any Shopify, so there will be millions of users constantly reaching out to the website, maybe to buy something or to look out for something and things like that. In that scenario, it is not possible to serve the traffic using a single server. So what happens is that a whole backend pool of servers which will be residing behind the load balancer. The single job of the load balancer is to distribute the traffic evenly, so all the backend servers are constantly working to serve the request. There's a concept called Open Systems Interconnection Model, which is called the OSI. So Azure Load Balancer is a layer 4, we call layer 4 load balancer. And one of the key fact or one of the key component about the Azure Load Balancer is it handles TCP, UDP type requests, and also other types of requests as well. There are multiple variations of the load balancer. The first is called a public load balancer. So what we mean by a public load balancer is it gets a publicly addressable IP address. So which means anybody from the public internet can actually read the load balancer using the IP. There are scenarios where a customer, or in your scenario, you might be hosting, you said, what, this load balancer, I don't want to be exposed to any public endpoint, but I want to use it only at my internal networks. So we have a same type, another type of load balancer, which is called the internal load balancer. So what that mean by that is only private addressable IP range. You know, the RFC 1918, which is the 10.170.198. IP addresses most of the time would be used, would be assigned to the load balancer for it to receive the traffic as well. And also one other key concept is the load balancers are also not used for incoming traffic requests, but they can also be used to send your request outside of your enterprise or outside of the network you are in. For example, you go and type in a website, you type in www.something.com or something, and then all of a sudden the request will go, and then the data has to be pushed back to the requester, right? So in that case, load balancers can also be configured to push the traffic out in for the receiver as well. There are certain concepts how the Azure Load Balancer works. We will slowly go into it, and then we will start with the first one, which is what are the logic behind in terms of distribution of traffic. So as I covered this already. Let's take the concept of the public load balancer. If you take the public load balancer, the TCP port 80 is exposed. This could be any website or whatsoever. And then basically, as you can see, the traffic coming from the TCP port 80 lands onto the load balancer. That's a public load balancer. And then it distributes to all the underlying virtual machine based on the request type. It will be distributed according to the website to the underlying servers as well. And I'll cover this already in terms of if you're talking about the internal load balancer as well. As you can see, the top layer is about internal virtual machines. They all connect to an internal load balancer, and then from the internal load balancer, it distributes to the underlying services. In this particular scenario, it's using a SQL Server database. That's basically 14443 is the known port of internal SQL Server. That's how the load is distributed. You can see there are two types of functionality for the load balancer. Next one is very key, right? So for example, there are two types of SKUs. So the reason for the two types of SKUs is, so we have a basic SKU, as well as we also have a standard SKU. The reason we do that is there are certain use cases where customers would use.
What is SKU?
It's called the SKU is called basically a unit, a type of unit, software key unit or something. Let me give you some. It's basically a traditionally when you go and buy a product, you have a barcode or something like that in the product, right? That's what they keep. They call as a SKU. There, it's basically a number of. It's called stock keeping unit. So, but we started to use in the cloud in the software too. It's called SKU. Is basically a type. You might buy a load balancer is one type, but you have two SKUs under it. It's a variation of the product.
Okay.
The one major difference between a basic load balancer as well as the standard load balancer is the basic load balancers are free and there is no charge for it, but you would not use a basic load balancer for any mission critical workloads. You might just use it for for internal testing and things like that. We're going to a very key concept here, which is basically called the load balancer rules. So what happens in a load balancer rules is when there are two types of key components to understand is when a load balancer is created, there are two types of things which happens. One is a front-end facing IP and a port number. So it should be something like 170.10.15.1, and a port would be 3389 or 2, or if you're using SSH, you might 22, or you might use RDP ports, or what are the different types of ports. What happens is the port and the IP address form a combination, and using the combination, what happens when the incoming request comes through, it will be translated into a piece of logic, and then based on it, the traffic be routed to the backend servers as well. So the load balancing rules are very key, because that's how the load balancer knows how to route the traffic across the backend servers. You keep hearing there are types of within the load balancer. There is also a concept called persistence. The reason why you have persistence on a load balancer is very simple. So, for example, you are logging into, you're looking for a request, and then let's say there are 3 users as an example: user 1, user 2, user 3. User 1 is looking for how to page number 1, and user 2 page number 2, and user 3 is page number 3, for example, right? When the user 1 is typing the IP address, and then he's requesting for a page 1, let's say the page 1 is sitting on a virtual machine 1, and the page 2 in virtual machine 2, and page 3 in virtual machine 3, right? So, for example, in order to keep the persistence of the request and the response, what happens to the load balancer? The load balancer writes into a table so that it clearly knows the originating IP address, what it is requesting, and what it is pulling, and what information is giving back. So even for a scenario, sometimes the backend server might go offline. When that happens, what's going to happen is because of session persistent, when a new machine comes up, it will always say the same page. So most of the time when downloading, if you see files, there are certain scenarios where session persistent is used a lot. Again, the logic is basically goes through the client IP and the client IP and protocol. So we call them hash concepts. Okay. So
this would be the layer 4 networking concepts that you were talking of in the load balancer.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yes. Basically, we see what we've done is we've taken the layer 4 concepts and converted it into a piece of software. Right. Again, in the Azure world and the cloud world, we have a very fixed way of we call them tuples, how we hash it, and that's very fixed. So in your traditional load balancers, you can mix and match. In Azure, we come up with the de facto standards. Thanks for the question. One thing you got to understand is there is a concept called tuples. So what we mean by that is when a load balancer is it's getting created, or when it distributes traffic, what it will do is it use a piece of logic that will help the load to be distributed across, because depending on the type of traffic, depending on the type of request, depending on the type of resources in the backend, the load balancer has to make a decision on how to route the traffic. So using the file tuple hash, if you Google what's a file tuple hash, you'll find out what the details are. It's able to distribute the workload across multiple servers. The fundamental fact of the matter is we don't want a single resource to be drained out too much. With what happens when you do that, basically you're only if you have 5 machines, if all the requests are going to only one single machine, all the 4 machines are idle. So that's the logic behind it, which will use this hash mechanism to distribute the traffic across it. So one of the key concepts to understand about the load balancer is health probes. So what's the reason for health probes is very straightforward. As I explained to you earlier, you might have a workload, you might have a web page, you might have some sort of a service sitting in so let's say in a couple of boxes, right? You distribute your service, or you distribute your request across multiple servers. So when that happens, there'll be scenarios that particular virtual machine would not be healthy, which means it's unavailable. It's not able to send the request. There could be a network latency issue. There'll be a lot of issues, right? So how does the load balancer knows that this particular machine is alive? It's able to get the request in. That's why we have a concept called health probes. The purpose of the health probe is very simple, right? It will go and check the server, the service, or whatever the backend pool data server. Hey, are you alive? What, are you healthy? Can I get your request? So what happens is every few minutes, in this case, you can set up a couple of seconds. Every 5 minutes or 5 seconds in the scenario, it's going to check the health of the underlying the server. Hey, are you okay? Can I send you a request? What it'll do is it will send a sometimes there'll be the particular server might be processing lots of requests. At times, it might not be able to respond back because an update is going on. In that scenario, we give you 2 or 3 tries. And after 2 tries, in this particular example, it will ping every 5 seconds. After 10 seconds, what will happen is that particular server is removed out of the service. So by doing that, what happens is you are not getting page not found, or you might not be getting any error messages, but the request would be transferred to another server or another available service. So health probes are very key. So basically think about if you heard of the ping, or there is other ways of doing it. So in Azure we support TCP or we support HTTP. So health probes are one of key functionality within the Azure Load Balancer to know the health of the system there.
This is Partha again, question.
Yes.
Since you said that this monitors the application, it's application health itself, do you have to inject any agent into the web server or app server?
So there are 2 ways. In this case, it comes out of the box within Azure itself. But there might be scenarios where if you have, let's say if you're running a multi-tier application, let's say you have this main server has got multiple applications underneath that, then you need to put in your custom health probe, and then you can publish that into some sort of URL of some sort. Then we can check it as well.
Thank you.
So in this case, install in the HTTP, when you show the portal, you'll see it will have a specific application name or like a file or something that you can also check that through. So Partha, I think maybe Partha asked a very key question. Most of the times when you build enterprise scale application, there will be multiple layers of servers behind the load balancer, right? For example, if you're building a web app, there will be web application layer. The web application layer will be talking to a backend server of some sort of database server, right? In that case, there are 2 or 3 layers underneath that. If, for example, if the load balancer checks only the top layer or the top machine, it always comes as healthy, but in the backend, the server might be not responding because the network is down, right? In that case, what we'll do is we build up a logic. The logic would constantly go and update a single web page or something, where it will say, you know what, the entire application stack is healthy, okay, 200, and the load balancer knows, okay, this entire stack is okay, right? So that's a very key question. In this case, that's a bit deep, but that's how it works too. So I think at this point in time, I have covered pretty much the at least the basics of the load balancers. So what I'll do is I'm going to, after this session or today, I'll send you a couple of PowerShell scripts or sample scripts where you can go and try it out. So I want to, it's 11 o'clock. Maybe I can open the floor for a few minutes, or any questions or any kind of use cases that you want to know, so that you're able to clearly follow the concepts.
On the chat, I do not see any question, but let's open the floor for the individuals to ask questions. Okay, so maybe I'll ask you a question. We have this load balances for TCP transport, but what about UDP and SCTP transport?
So both the Azure Load Balancer supports all type of protocols.
Okay.
both UCP, UDP, TCP, and also it supports the other type of transport protocols as well.
Okay, because I
Partha,
understood. Sorry, I understood that UDP, because it's stateless, it's very difficult to kind of load balance, and there are some issues around that.
Yes.
Maybe some insights could help. Yeah.
So UDP is basically, if you think about UDP traffic, it doesn't really, so basically just fire and forget. It doesn't care about whether you receive the request or not. TCP has got the entire packet is composed of multiple states. If you see the packet information, it's got states to when you deliver, it's going to have some state for deliver. In UDP, just basically fire and forget. But UDP is used in some use cases. But TCP is also heavy too, right? It's a very heavy protocol. In Azure, we do support this particular load balance supports UDP, TCP, HTTP, HTTPS, and SMTP as well. And those are used for real-time voice and message services too. There was a question I missed it.
yeah, this is Partha again. Most applications today use the ELK stack to do monitoring for their different components.
Yes.
Can this load balancer consume reports from ELK, or
so Partha, the way
integrate with it?
Yes. One of my topics I'll talk about in Azure, we have a logging mechanism called Azure Monitor. So what happens in Azure Monitor is a single unified framework where all Azure services will publish their logs and matrices. So in this case, one of the metrics for the load balancer could be, health or, availability or something like that. It's all published as a RESTful API service. In that scenario, the ELK will have a plugin or something to pull the information out of Azure, and then that's how that's how the ELK stack would monitor on it. So it's got detail. And also another thing we also have is within the Azure load balancer, we also have diagnostic settings where you can enable diagnostics to push any type of information across any type of third-party system. So it's called we call it as a Azure Monitor. That's our single API RESTful service, which is available for any types of service to consume logs from Microsoft, irrespective of the service, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Partha, for the questions. And it makes things interesting. Hey, Kader.
Yeah.
So I want to jump into the second concept, which is application gateway. Do you think I can? It's 11:03 now, right? So do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Let's do this. Team, let me share my screen. This is very, very important for us, right? So give us an appreciation, by.
You want me to stop sharing?
Yeah. I'm trying to share here. So hopefully you all can see my screen. So please go to Teams, click Teams here, and then go to General. And then when you go to General, there is a menu here called Fill Testoper General. So just click that. And then there is a survey. It's pretty simple. In 1 minute, you can fill it in. I would appreciate if you could do this and help us to understand how we are doing. Will be really, really appreciated. So let's give, it's 11:04 now. Let's give 2 minutes for you all to fill it up, please. Please fill it up. Don't ignore. It's very, very important. That's an appreciation you give us for all the effort that we are trying to put together as an organizers team, please. And programs team, everyone attending this this session have the account, right? So they are able to go and access this link.
Sorry, why am I being asked to log in there again? And what should I log in with?
You are asked to log in.
Yeah, you can ignore the page, I guess. It
Yeah.
might be the same
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
Just ignore it.
Okay.
Close it and you can fill in.
Yeah, you know, nowadays even it's the same thing in my day job, right? So every time, you know, I think because of this COVID, a lot of attacks and everyone is becoming like every time when I open something, I have to log in. and we also use Microsoft in our company. So thank you very much for filling. One more minute. It's 11:06. One more minute.
Khaled, I just need to take a quick break. Okay, just give me.
Yeah, please. So everyone in the call can give me a word that they have finished filling up the survey?
Not yet done.
Not yet. Oh.
Yeah,
Is it taking
some
that?
text field to fill also. So
Oh,
that
okay.
takes time. If you
Okay.
want us to fill there.
No, I cannot answer that question, right? It's you who are filling.
Just
So
give us some more time.
sure. Thank you very much. Please say it once you have completed it, please.
Yeah, Partha here completed. Thanks.
Okay. Awesome. So for those who have completed it, you know, can you see my screen? Can you type it in your browser, testoper.eventbrite.com? I'll send this link also in the chat. The Codathon. Navena, thank you very much. So some of you might have already done this survey. Those who have already done the survey, they don't have to do it, right? So those who have not done it.
I'm back now.
Yeah, the people are taking a little bit more time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'll get my.
This is very important for you also.
True. Yeah, no, I just make sure. Okay,
so I see Navena says she's done. Paramveer is done. I hope everyone is completing it. I really appreciate it. You doing it. Okay, so the next one is I just sent a link in the chat, which is testoper.eventbrite.com. And when you type that in a browser, you would actually see what you're seeing in the screen right now. There is 2 programs. So the one that you are attending is right now, which is a Testoper Intelligent Automation Codathon, which is good. So there is 2 more programs that we are launching in June. The first one is Test Automation Codathon. This is applicable only for those who wants to learn test automation, right? And also test ops, right? So it's going to be continuous program, and we will start from one topic and it will continue. So this is optional for those only who are interested to learn this can register for this. And then there is one more, the third one that you would see, Testoper Meetup June 20th, 2020. This is something that I want every one of you to register, because I know that you will benefit out of this. We have wonderful speakers, as you can see. I'll just click this and show you. So we have a chief architect from Microsoft and RBC, head of cloud in RBC. And then we also have a founder of Cyber Career Center, and also, you know, he runs a big community around cybersecurity. So we have great speakers, and the topic is going to be interesting: how Microsoft is using machine learning and AI to enhance cybersecurity in the cloud, cybersecurity in financial services, and then career and opportunity in the field of cybersecurity. It's going to be an awesome topics, and I want every one of you to register. So I'll give 2 more minutes for you guys to go and register, and then Krishna, you can start the session. Let's say 11.
Just on the, just on that attendees, right? Dhruv Chandra, that's one of the presenter. Am I right, Kadir?
Yeah. Yes.
So Dhruv Chandra is a good friend of mine. So he has been doing cybersecurity for a number of years. So I think I would not miss his session no matter what, because from the depth of knowledge he has got from the financial industry as well as Azure is very extensive. So he's also hosting AZ500 Azure certification exams as well. So he's a good speaker. So I know him for a number of years. I would definitely attend that session for sure.
Yeah. And you know, Derek, he's also from Microsoft, but he takes care of all the government related cybersecurity stuff, and he's going to give us a speech from Ottawa. And then we have Brian Lee. He runs the biggest cybersecurity community, more than 1,000 people in Toronto, right? And Brian and Dhruv, they work together most of the cases. And he is the founder of his own company, which is Cyber Tech Risk, and also another company which is Cyber Career Center. Excellent speakers. You know, it's a must for everyone in this audience to attend.
Derek is also a very seasoned professional from a security perspective. He has got a lot of experience working in the public sector agencies. And Brian also, last week he hosted one of the largest hackathon on for security related ones. So yeah, it's a good line of speakers.
So please take a minute to go and log in and register it, please. Depending upon which, you know, this one is mandatory for everyone. Test automation, depending upon your interest. Let's give a couple of minutes. You know, there's one thing that I don't understand also, right? Is when we, you know, no offense, guys, right? When we ask for the survey after, and when we ask people to register after, they don't register. And that's why we have to do this and see if you guys are interested to register. But we will know, like, you know, today we have like 30 people in the session, and I'm seeing close to only like 14 people have updated the survey, and not everyone updated. And also I see that very few people have registered. So that gives, you know, the reason that I wanted to do this in this session is that gives us some kind of an indication. Okay, out of 30 people who are really interested in these 2 programs as well as filling up the survey. So you guys are registering Eventbrite. Do you have any questions? All good? Hello?
I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay.
Yeah. Please take some time to. Okay, 1 more minute, and then I'm going to give it to Krishna. In case if you have not completed the survey and the Eventbrite registration, please do it towards the end of the session. Do not miss it, please. We know exactly who all have done it, who have not done it. So I don't want to explicitly say and call up the name who has not done it. But please, I kindly request do it after the session, right?
Kader, Sandeep here. Maybe you can also share the survey link in the phone, maybe into a test hopper, because there might be few people who have logged through the phone today.
Fair point, yeah. Maybe, Kader, we should do that as well.
I know I have done it through phone and I'm yet to complete it. And I know as I'm trying to, manage some chores with the kids as well, I will do it, but maybe a direct link there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Kader. This is Joy. I am not able to log in to Teams from this site where we are right now, but after the lesson, I will go back and do it.
Okay, you should be, because you're attending this because you logged in into the Teams, right?
Yeah,
Joy?
but from here, I don't see. Usually, I see the activity chat, Teams, the sidebar.
The left-hand one, you don't see it?
No, I don't see that.
Yeah, that means you have not
I'm
logged in. I think you have not logged in to join. That was the problem, right? So
could be.
I keep
but
telling,
I will,
right? Yeah. Okay, please
go
do it. I have sent the survey, external link in the Codathon chat, WhatsApp chat. But I recommend you log in into Microsoft Teams, go to General tab, and then click and then update the survey, right? That's the right way to do it. Not from the external link, but I have given the external link as well. Okay, guys, floor to you, Krishna. I think you should get started. You have 30 minutes to close. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to take over the screen from you. And then...
Just one question. So this load balancer would span across multiple regions also, right?
Right now, you see the load balancer it's a one single region or one single availability zones. Okay. So if you want a global load balancer, that's why you have Traffic Manager or something like the sorts of Azure Friend. So it's always a regional, if it's going to be in a single region, Canada Central as an example, or multiple availability zones. Okay. It's going to be only for that particular zone. But if you want to go something beyond that, okay, that's where your global traffic manager comes into play, where it can distribute traffic across multiple different regions.
GTM is a concept. It's out of Azure. It exists even in today's world. Like if we want to manage production and DR in the same single load balancer, we have this global traffic manager and global load balancer, GLBs, right? Yeah.
So we do in Azure for this particular, the scope of the load balancer is pretty much on the data center. It is existing, but there are other ways to distribute traffic across the particular different zones as well. You can use techniques like, you can create additional multiple load balancers that can be connected through a different proxy or something like that.
And like from a network perspective, what needs to be managed in this load balancer? Like if I can think of like the simple things of like rules we will manage, and like say affinity or any persistence that will manage. But apart from that, like if I speak from a traditional perspective, for an F5 load balancer, we had to manage the scripts which will handle all this affinity and all that. So if we can relate it to Azure.
Yep. Are you able to see my screen? I just want to quickly show a quick demo. Because it's a managed service, you don't need to pretty much manage anything at all.
I don't know about others, or it's just
I cannot see there. Yeah.
That's because I'm not sharing anything. That's why. Let me share now.
And one more question, Krishna and Navina here. So these, for the load balancers, do we have anything similar to the concepts like, application load balancers, network load balancers?
We have two types. I mean, if you think about load balancers, there's one in Azure load balancer, which is layer 4, application gateway, which is layer 7. And we also one more hybrid called the Azure Friend Door, which is on top of that, and we also have a GTM, which is a global load balancer, which is we call them as a traffic manager.
Okay.
We don't have any specific for the network load, because network load balancer and interchangeably call it as Azure load, as a layer 4 load balancer as well, right? So are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, so this time I'm going to just pray to the demo god so that it doesn't fail like last time, or it doesn't show. I'm going to just quickly create a simple load balancer, then you can follow that through. Today I might need to extend a little bit. Hopefully I'll finish within time. Just give me a few minutes. So what I do is I'll go and create a simple load balancer, and I'll walk you through what you see inside the load balancer. Let me add key resource. As always, you search for the keyword and then you click create. We call it desktop. So as I was explaining earlier, there are two types of load balancer. One is internal and a public facing one. So in this case, let's do a public facing load balancer. The next week, I want to show you a demo of how does a public load balancer works, maybe create two backend pools and route the traffic between these two. So
Krishna, this is Sonali again. Sorry to bother you. So when you use an internal load balancer, like is it internal, meaning it will be accessible only from my virtual network, right?
Yes. So internal load balancer you use when you having only internal facing workloads, or there
like
might be
from one application to the other application within the same system, like the front end calling the back end, something like that, or app.
Yes. Very true. Very true. Very true. So, or there might be scenarios where you would use an external load balancer. For example, you might use an application gateway to get the traffic from the external world, and then you'll terminate the traffic at your DMZ zone. From the DMZ zone, you will translate. You will get a load balancer to take the traffic inside your network.
Yeah.
So you know what? Let's say, for example, you type HTTPS something, and then you go to the website, and then what you always do is you terminate the traffic at the DMZ zone. When the traffic is done, you'll start to you create a new connection so that there is security purposes. You should do that, and then your internal load balancer is used. Internal load balancers can also be used for public facing, so it depends on your workload. So for example, if you're hosting a web file server or some sort of a service which you want to use non-HTTP type traffic, then you use an external load balancer with a public IP here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to create that. Usually takes a couple of minutes. In this case, I'm not going to choose, as you can see here. Let's see. Looks like I missed something. What did I miss? Okay. This time I'm creating a zone redundant service. Let's say. Give me a few minutes, so it should be created. Okay, the load balancer is done. A couple of key points. What you do is I'll try and explain to you guys. As you can see, at this point in time, this has got a public IP address. You can reach this service through a public endpoint. We haven't defined any NAT rules, or we haven't defined any backend pools. So basically, backend pools are basically the servers. We need to attach it so that it becomes operational. We haven't set up any load balancing rules or anything like that. So on Azure, a couple of key points I want to, maybe I will repeat this. So we have a feature called activity logs. The purpose of the activity log is any type, it takes few minutes for the synchronization to happen. Anytime a resource gets created, all the CRUD, create, read, create, update, and delete are basically stored in the activity logs from a logging perspective. We also call Azure Load Balancer as a first-class resource, which means it has got a very strong role-based access control. So this is where you can assign, say, a load balancer administrator, or you can assign certain type of people or resources to work with this one. So every top resource in Azure will always have a access control. And these access control are attached to your identity, which is Azure AD. So based on it, you can actually access this service based on your permission that are given to you. Tags are very important. Tags are basically these usually used for a couple of reasons: for billing purposes or back charging purposes, or if you so most of the time it's also used from security and audit and compliance. When you use Azure Security Center, it will say this resource is being impacted. Tagging gives details on who actually owns the resource and what type of people are part of the particular resource in question. We started introducing diagnostics. We also have, this is where you can configure the front end. I will show you an example over next week. We also spoke about the health probes shortly on the previous slide. So this is where you can actually give your health probes. The health probes are the way where the Azure Load Balancer is able to find out health of the underlying backend pool servers. There's also load balancing rules. How does the load balancer behave, and what are the rules you can apply to it? It's available on the load balancing rules. Inbound NAT rules. Basically, NATing also gets you, in this case, when you want to do an you receive a traffic and you want to push the traffic out, you will define the NAT rules so that the receiving party doesn't know. Basically, they get the same type IP addresses all the time, but the backend you have multiple servers serving the same request. And obviously there are locks. You can always lock a resource for against any accidental deletion, or you can make the resource as read only. So there's options there. I think there was a question came on how do I look at the metrics? Can I use Elk Stack? This is where Azure publishes all the metrics is for any service to consume and go on from there. So at least in the next week, I will show a full demo where I have 2 virtual machines and how the load balancer works. We will send traffic to each one of them and shut down one machine so that you can actually see how the load balancer working in real world.
So here we can store obviously like historical data also, right? Just to see the trend and all that stuff.
Yes. So what you do is in this, you can configure a log analytics workspace to this particular load balancer resource. And what happens, all the trending and things like that is available through this, and also using any third-party tools as well. As you can see, right? I mean, I don't have a lot of data here. You can actually, based on, you can see at least it gives you a time based. It's saying 12 p.m. It gives you a time series. You can also do for multiple months and things like that, depending on how you configure logging and logging duration.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Krishna, Pankaj here.
Yeah, Pankaj.
So my question is, as a tester, what are the roles and responsibility that is related to load balancer? Do I need to create a load balancer as a tester, or I need to use that already created? How it?
Okay, that's a good, fantastic question, Pankaj. So depending on your role, for example, if you're an application tester, right? If you're testing application as an example, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, you don't need to worry about how the load balancer works. Keep the thought in mind. I'll come back to that. Let's say if you're an infrastructure developer or infrastructure tester, right? So where your job is to make sure the underlying infrastructure is working optimally, right? In those scenarios, definitely you need to make sure how the services get deployed, whether when the service get deployed, whether tags are attached properly, whether the proper metrics are captured, whether backend server pools are properly configured. So depending on your role, it would vary. Let's go back to the application test scenarios, right? For example, if you're building a web application as an example, right? And your job is to test the web application, okay?
Okay.
One of the things you have to do in your, maybe one of your test case would be testing or the impact of the load on a single server or multiple servers, right? When you do load testing, you might need to have multiple servers serving the request, or you might reduce the load to find what the thresholds are. Depending on if your job is to test pure application, nothing else, then your role will be basically you go to the website, type in something, hit save or whatever it is, and see how they perform. Depending on the role, your testing purpose would vary. But in your case,
maybe we can ask this question. So Pankaj, what do you do in testing? What is your expertise?
Yeah, so I did functional testing and a bit of manual testing using Selenium Protector.
Okay. So see, so now your expertise is on the application side, right? So when you're using a Selenium, you're doing an application testing. But when you're doing a functional testing, most probably you are testing one call or one session or two session, right? So it's like a website, without load balancer, which has less traffic is okay, right? So from that point of view, that's the answer, right? Maybe you would not come across anything to do with the load balancer. But then my view is a little different, right? My advice to you is that, say, if you're developing your career on testing, right, what would you do? Developers, they build the product and they hand over it to the testers. So first of all, you have to set up the test environment, right?
Yeah.
Which is equivalent to the production environment, what operation guys are going to do, right? A stage environment. So when you wanted to set up a stage environment, if you know all these concepts, what Krishna is teaching, and if you build your expertise, you would be able to first of all set up the test environment, okay? And then the second thing is, that's why you need to learn this, right? And then the second thing is, in future, not functional and manual testing, but in future, if you are asked to do testing on the infrastructure, like Krishna was saying, then you have to know all these concepts. If you don't know what is UDP, what is TCP, what's the difference between these two, right? And what is load balancer, why load balancer is used. If you are deploying a website which is having 100, 200 users, you don't need a load balancer. But if you're going to have millions of users, you need to have a load balancer, right? Because you don't have one big mammoth machine to handle millions of users, right? So you're going to do that across multiple machines, and you need a load balancers to load balance across all these multiple machines, right? So those kind of thought process and thinking process and the knowledge that you would require to test from the infrastructure point of view. And finally, again, Krishna, like he mentioned, if you become a load tester in future, then you would be using Selenium to do, generate, let's say, millions of, website access as an example, right? And suddenly it doesn't work. As a tester, you can say, it doesn't work, and then you can just sit there, which is just a talent, right? But if you're a creative talent, you should be able to go and debug and be able to say to the other party, this is the reason why it is not happening. So there's a difference.
What's the root cause of that problem? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, please.
So another point I want to mention is today, when customers build applications specifically, right? So there are types. Most of the time, when people do application testing, right? It's better to understand how the underlying infrastructure works. We have a blue-green deployment model, right? So in the blue-green deployment, what technically speaking is both the old and the new version of the software might be running together, but only the load balance will be sending the request to only one particular server in question. The other one will not be having any requests, right? So we also A and B testing as well. So I think usually what they do is they'll tweak the configure the load balancer so the traffic only goes to only one type of servers and other ones don't get it. And also there's also other concepts where what they do is they would have applications in two different data center regions. They use a global load balancer to split out the requests in site A would have the latest update, site B would have the old update. What they'll do is they will update the site B with the new updates and switch over the load balancer across. So Microsoft has got a very detailed documentation. I think you should spend some time on understanding the load balancer ones. So that's a good question. I'm going to say we also have a thing called Microsoft Cloud Architecture Framework, which I can send the link. So the architecture framework has got a couple of interesting points about testing. So maybe if you can have a look at it, it'll be good. So Kader, the next topic is going to take another 30 to 45 minutes on the application gateway. So I'm going to do that next week. The next week, what I want to do is I want to start a sample with a public-facing load balancer, internal load balancer, two use cases. In the public-facing load balancer, I'll distribute the traffic into 2 different servers, and I'll switch off the first server and show how it works. Internal load balancer, I might have a simple use case to showcase. So I think we already 11:35. I want to give 10 minutes back, and then next week you'll go into an application gateway. But application gateway is much more detailed topic. As always, if you have any questions, if you want any feedback, things I should improve, I'm more than happy. So I think I really thank you guys for spending time on a Saturday morning, and it's a sunny day as well. Listening to me, thank you, really appreciate it. So I was planning to do the 2 sections.
I don't think so. It is sunny day today.
Yeah, which part are you living in? It was smoky. There were flurries in the morning.
Is it? I woke well. I can see a bright sun. Maybe it's
bright sun is like cheating on us. It's windy outside.
So
we had a dusting of snow also today.
Is it?
Yeah, see?
Just imagine May 9th of May, and we are still at minus and low zeros, right? It's crazy.
It's cold, but it is sunny over here in Brampton.
Nice. Yeah. So it's maybe in Oakville it was. I can see the sun. Maybe I should just go and enjoy a few minutes, come back. So yeah, that's hopefully today was useful. This topic is very extensive. There's also HA ports on when you use a network appliances, where you can have a single port to be used by all your NVA, which is network virtual appliances. The concept is deep, but next week hopefully I'll show a decent demo so you can appreciate the concept behind the load balancer as well.
Also, Krishna, if you can touch upon some test facilities, or not test facility, test tools that Microsoft has for performance and load testing. Performance and
Okay.
Just touch upon them. I don't think we have time to go into detail, but we can please have a look at it.
Okay, you know what? I won't promise you, but I'll touch upon. But I have a very good one good friend of mine. She is an application designer and developer. Hopefully, if I can get her into one of the calls, Kader, we can have a very deep dive on the performance and application testing using Azure DevOps, which is a key topic as well. Can you put that into my action item to get back to you on it? That's a good question. I want to really do that as part of the session as well.
For me, end of the day, right? Testing, product testing before delivering the product to the customer hands, right? And continuous testing after delivering the product to the customer hands, which also includes monitoring, right? Monitoring, testing, monitoring, and troubleshooting, along with the operations of that particular product 24/7. All these things are interconnected nowadays, right? It's so closely knitted that it's very important that you understand 3 aspects of it: testing, monitoring, and troubleshooting, right? These are the 3 aspects of testopers, right? Who's responsible for testing? He has to know all the 3. Who's responsible for operating the network? He has to know all the 3: testing, monitoring, and operations. So this is the expertise. Developing this expertise will really help every one of us here. Right? It's just not only deploying, right? You understand, Sonali, and my point of view?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, perfect. I'll take that as an action point. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
I think we have released a framework called Cloud Adoption Framework. So this framework is built for enterprises to adopt Azure. This is a very generic format. As a matter of fact, you can learn a lot of concepts here that you can use on real world. It's on enterprise scale. If you have time, I really definitely want you guys to go and have a look at it, and then walk through the pattern, design the strategy of hosting like pretty much Azure or public cloud application. This is very detailed. It is done with, I would say, hundreds of architects like me around the world. All of them have put their ideas into it. I would definitely want you all have a look at it. If you want, We can start with the first sample project we have called the first, of Cloud Adoption Framework project. I would definitely spend some time on this. This is one of the best CAFs I've ever seen. If you think about a lot of the concepts we talk on our session is also connected with this one as well. Yeah, I just want to share to you guys so that, when you have some free time, you can just poke around this and see what it is. I think it's only 11:40. I won't take too much of a time. I want to give. Well, son, please enjoy. If not,
Thank you very much, Krishna.
Or maybe
no problem. Thank you, Partha, for all the questions. It makes, I'll send the link through Kadir. And just for some reason, I know I'm connected to the meeting. Okay, here I am. Sorry. Thank you all. Looking forward for next week. As I shared you, thank you very much for taking time. Any questions, feedback, comments, don't hesitate. Thank you guys. I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you, Kadir, for hosting it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Kadir,
Yeah.
Sandeep here. Kadir,
Go ahead,
do we
Sandeep.
sort of a week by week agenda, like what we plan to cover in the upcoming at least 3 or 4 weeks, if not all the way?
Yeah, that's something that we are actually thinking about it. But I can tell you, at least the program right now that we are going on, right? So this is going to go till I think July, and we will cover the complete cloud. And after July, we will come up with some kind of an area where we would be focusing on AI and ML for next 3 months, right? That's what is going to happen for this. Now, if you are going to ask me within cloud, what are all the different topics each week we are going to cover? We have not become that perfect, to be very honest with you.
Okay.
Right. So we are improving continuously, like I told you, right? We are also improving. Maybe what we are thinking is once we go through this cycle, maybe the next cycle we will know exactly how it's going to work, right? Maybe next time.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, whoever is presenting, they would know. Okay, they're gonna take a couple of sessions, and more or less, I'm not saying to the dot that we need to know, but roughly we're gonna say, okay, next 3 or more 4 sessions will be these topics, and under those topics, roughly what we plan to cover.
Okay, so Krishna, it should be something that we can do, right, Krishna? Maybe he's left.
Maybe he left.
I'll talk to him and then I'll get back to you, right? But at a very high level, next 8 weeks, you're going to learn only cloud, all the different concepts inside the cloud. That much I know, I can tell you.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, and I don't want to really, micromanage the trainers, asking them. No.
No, that's fine. We appreciate your efforts, anyways. Either way.
Thank you, man. It's all our effort. No, it's also your effort, everyone's effort here. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, everyone. You guys have a great week. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Thanks.